Hey Bookends! Welcome to a 10-minute book review. I'm 10. As you can see, we're back in the studio. My son still uses it for school, but he's not in school right now, and I have all this beautiful sunlight. And you can kind of hear the sounds of the hood in the background, so we're just gonna keep moving. This week's book review is on Star Wars, The High Republic, Into the Dark. We don't really have a picture to show you because it was an art copy. Full disclosure, this was given to us for free for the purpose of an open and honest review. So jumping right on in, we like to start every book review with a rating and a star point. So a star point is in out of 10 stars, how many stars did this particular book garner, and a rating as in if this was a movie or a TV show, what would it be rated? Starting with the star point, this book would be rated 7 out of 10 stars. It was like going back to my childhood. And as a rating, this is really, there are some curse words, but I think it's like 1 or 2, and it's very light. It's one of the light curses, and it is well placed. It's not randomly placed. So I'd probably rate this a PG-13. I definitely don't think that there's anything in here that a 12-year-old would be scandalized by, or, you know, there's action, there's some violence, but it's Star Wars-esque violence, so it's not heavy. I should say it could be considered heavy, but it's not heavily descriptive, if that makes sense. You're not gonna learn how to kill your best friend by, you know, reading this book. It's not that kind of a book. So, jumping right into the actual story, this story follows the narrative of 4 different people. A Padawan, a young Jedi, a Jedi Master, and also a Jedi Master who is trying to find themselves, or a Jedi who's trying to find themselves. They board a freight and, you know, headed out to another area. It starts off basically with the narrative of a Jedi Master who has a Padawan, and she's telling her Padawan that they're going to be going to the Outer Rim at this time. So keep in mind, the Outer Rim, when this book is supposed to be taking place, because this is like right before, I believe, the Golden Age, or it is the Golden Age of the Republic. So the Outer Rim at this point is not the same Outer Rim that we know of, that came later on, because of course of exploration. I believe this book takes place about 200 or 300 years before the world of Star Wars that we know. So yes, they're going out to the Outer Rim for an assignment, and he's staying behind because he has some report that he needs to do, or a test that he needs to do at the temple. Fun fact about this is in the heyday, like the very opening of the Jedi Temple on Coruscant. So at this point in time, there are still other Jedi temples that are actively being used. So if you follow the world of Star Wars, whether you follow canon or non-canon, the general theme is that the other Jedi temples are closed. They're not open. They've been abandoned. So at this point in time, I believe that the temple in Coruscant has only been open for about 20 or 30 years, which is a lot of years to a humanoid who doesn't have a long lifespan like a human, but isn't that much time for a humanoid that does have a long lifespan like someone like Yoda. Also, fun fact, Yoda isn't exactly in this book, but he is mentioned in the book. So I believe he is on council too. So there aren't any characters in this book that you're going to find from the canons that we have seen within the last 40 years, aside from Yoda. So jumping right back into the book, the Padawan is going to travel to where his master is. Also, he's traveling with a former student of his master who has become a knight, and another master who is, I don't believe he's on council, but he is a master, and a Jedi who is trying to find herself. They end up going to this away station, kind of, and this away station is kind of like out of the Twilight Zone. Like, it's basically made to kill people. It's like an arboretum, so like there's plants and stuff growing everywhere. Plants and stuff growing everywhere, but there's also a lot of booby traps, a lot of things just meant to kill people. One of the Jedis is thought to have been killed when they go to this arboretum, And also they're trying to get away from these people or stay out of range of these people called the Nihil, who are like raiders kind of. They basically destroy other ships and take what they can from them, and also even take pieces of the ship to create new ships, like Borg. They're almost like Borg ships, if you're familiar with Star Trek. Yeah, so kind of piecemeal some ships together. They narrowly make it back. Now, this isn't a spoiler. There's no spoilers. Because the real action starts, like, they make it back to Coruscant, right? And the real action starts when they decide to go back to the station. So when they originally ended up at the station, it was because of just an accident. Something happened in hyperspace, and they had to come out of hyperspace to be safe, and that station was the only place that they could really go to. And that's why they ended up there. But now they think that they have taken something from that station. Like, originally they thought that an artifact, a couple of artifacts that they took from that station had the dark side in it, like the dark side of the Force in it, and they want to examine it so they could find out how to contain it. But when they bring it back to the temple, they find out that the artifacts don't have any of the dark force in it. No, 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 no. The artifacts were containing the dark side. It was containing the dark side of the Force inside the station. So now they have to go back to the station, find out what the origin of the dark side is in this station, dark side of the Force, and they have to find out if they can contain it, because they're going to bring the artifacts back, but it may not be enough to contain it because they've already removed them. Also, they may have been tricked by some people who were part of the Nihil, who were pretending to be like innocent because they had no way of fighting at that point. So there's like a lot of stuff that's happening. This is a really good book. This brought me back to my childhood because it reminded me of the Jedi Apprentice series, and also the series with Anakin and Obi-Wan. So if you're not familiar, the Jedi Apprentice series is with Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan. So it basically shows you from when Obi-Wan started his Padawanship with Qui-Gon, all the way to when Obi-Wan starts his knighthood and then Padawanship with Anakin. So those are the books that really rallied my childhood, my teen years. I was engulfed in that. I have all the special editions, all the books. Yeah, my parents dropped a lot of money for me because I was getting it every time a new book came out. And this is also a young adult series too. So if you're looking for something that is more on the adult side, like the Kenobi series, like not Kenobi series, it's just Kenobi. This is not that kind of a Star Wars book. This is more so in the light of a young adult series, even a little bit younger than young adult. Not that it's really made for people younger than young adult. I would probably label young adult like 13 up. But people younger than 13 could read it, even though it's not really made for them. It's not going to scandalize them in any way. Also, just a heads up. Now, I know that this is a ARC copy, so it didn't have everything in it, I would suppose. But when I looked at the actual book for sale, it doesn't say this on the book either. So the book isn't labeled Legends, so it does not have the Legend stamp of approval on it. So if you have been following Lucasfilms ever since it was bought by Disney, all of the books that were canon before Disney purchasing Lucasfilms are no longer canon. The only ones that are considered canon even after the purchase are the ones that have the Legend stamped on it. So that means that if you read certain books, if you read the Jedi Apprentice series, if you read the any of the series before Disney bought it, there's a good chance that some of the things in it are no longer canon. Just like Leia and Han no longer have twins. They no longer have twins. Instead now Jason is the son of Kanan and Hera from Jedi Rebels. So the name was kept, One of the names was kept. The other twin just disappeared. But the name was kept, but the twins are gone. So, you know, certain things just aren't canon anymore. This book is not a Legends. It's not the Legends moniker on it. It doesn't have the Legends stamp on it. So it is completely possible that everything that we learn in this book may not be canon. I believe that it will remain canon though. Like I believe that it will be canon only because the things in the book take place about 200, 300 years before the characters that we've come to know and love. I would say the earliest character that we would know would be Qui-Gon Jinn in the Jedi, like on television and stuff like that, would be Qui-Gon Jinn. So this is like 200 to 300 years before he was even conceived. So I can't imagine why anything that would be in this series would be dispelled, especially since it's a brand new series and it was commissioned by Disney. But I just want to give that heads up to anyone who is reading it and expecting it to be completely canon. I think that it is, but it doesn't have the Legends label on it. So there is a chance that it might not be. Just a heads up, just a heads up. And when you know it, while I'm doing this, my Kindle decides that it needs to update. Yay. But yeah, overall, it was a really good read. I would really advise it. Even as an adult, it was a great read. Also, if you're not much of a reader, there is going to be a comic series along with it. So this is going to be really, really interesting because it's not like a graphic novel type thing where it has pictures but it's as long as a novel. Instead, this is going to be a hybrid series. So there are going to be novels and there are going to be comics. So if you want to be able to follow the series in its completion, like completely, then you're going to have to read the novels and the comics. So that encourages reading, but it also gives people who are not really big on reading a break from the chunky novel. When I say chunky, it's like maybe 200, 250 pages, not really that much. But it gives people a break from what some might consider a chunky novel to take a look at a comic strip. And the comic strip is kind of, if you read the comic strip for Kanan Jarrus, I'll try to leave a link to it in the description. But if you've read the comic strip for Kanan Jarrus, then it's kind of like that. How it's like 13 comic books. I don't know how many comic books this is going to have, but it kind of follows that kind of format, like how it's drawn, how it's written. So it's not like a DC comic. It's not like a Marvel comic. It's more so a Star Warsy comic based on, how should I put this? One, I think it's better drawn than DC and Marvel, because the pictures, if you notice sometimes in DC and Marvel comics, sometimes the facial features will be a little bit blurred or not as visually tangible, you know, and that's done on purpose. With Star Wars, these characters are definitive and they're not being rewritten and redrawn. So their features are definitive. They're visually tangible. By looking at just their face, no matter what other things they have on, you are able to definitively say, hey, that's Qui-Gon, or hey, that's Hera. Like, you're definitively able to say that. Also, too, it is plot heavy, not action heavy. And so yes, there is action, but unlike with a lot of DC and Marvel comics, you're gonna get to know these characters through the plot of what's happening as opposed to the action of what's going on around them. So keep in mind, those are different things that you're going to see in the comic. In the novels, be prepared to see many different points of views coming at you at one time. I have 2 minutes until I have to go. Yes, but be prepared to see many different points of views coming at you at one time. I know that this was an uncorrected arc, but if it's anything like how the book is going to be, then it may be chapter by chapter, or even within the chapter, you might get to hear 2 or 3 different voices. I believe 3 at the most, but, you know. So just be prepared for that. You're going to hear different voices. That's a good way to keep the reader from being bored, but also might be a little bit confusing if the reader is trying to follow one track of thought or one train of action, and then all of a sudden another train just comes into the station and says, nope, you're going with me. But But all in all, great read, highly recommend it, and thank you so much for watching. If you like what you see, please like and subscribe. Bye, Bookends.